Right, good afternoon everybody, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming this afternoon. I'm Martyn Dunne and I'm the Director General of MPI. I'm joined by Michael Heron, the QC and former Solicitor General, who I engaged to undertake an independent review of these fisheries compliance operations, an independent review of the 3 fisheries compliance operations undertaken by MFish and MPI, and the prosecution decisions involved in each. I understand you've had a brief opportunity to read some of the material, and I'm now going to ask Mr. Heron to provide a summary of his findings. Right.
Thank you, Martyn, and good morning, or good afternoon, as it soon will be. I'm just going to read parts of the overview and the summary. On the 16th of May 2016, the Simmons report was released. The findings in that suggested that fish without economic value have been routinely dumped at sea and not reported. On the 18th of May, the media reported obtaining information that New Zealand fishing boats have been illegally dumping quota fish. The source was MPI reports into 2 MPI operations named Achilles and Hippocamp. They were conducted in 2012 and 2013. Each was referred to in the Simmons report. As a result, there was criticism of MPI's decisions not to prosecute in these 2 operations. On the 19th of May, the Director General commissioned a review into these operations and a 3rd one called Overdue. The terms of reference were finalised and sent to me on the 24th of May. I started my review and interviewed approximately 25 people, including a range of current and former ministry staff, representatives of commercial and recreational fishing. I reviewed documents and correspondence and a range of documents. The detail is in the report. A summary of my findings is at Chapter 2, and I'll just deal with that now. In respect of the first in time Operation Overdue, this was an operation in respect to 4 commercial fishing vessels in early 2003. Product from 2 vessels was able to be inspected, and the investigation suggested that the catch landing record had understated the weight of fish. An investigation and legal process followed, and a decision was made not to prosecute. In my view, the decision was understandable in the circumstances. The response appeared to be adequate and produced a change of behaviour by the fishing company concerned. There were initial errors, but despite that, the investigation and documentation was thorough and professional. No other prosecution or compliance action needed to be taken. The second, Operation Hippocamp, this was an operation to gather information to determine the extent of dumping in the southeastern trawl and set net fishery. To a certain extent this was successful, but the results were limited. There was no referral to prosecution or recommendation to prosecute arising from the operation. This was reasonable and understandable given the limitation of the findings. Accordingly, there was no decision not to prosecute. The question didn't arise. A follow-up operation using MFish vessels was recommended but didn't occur. Operation Achilles, which I'll come to now, provided an effective alternative. Operation Achilles. In November 2012, MPI installed monitoring cameras on set net commercial fishing vessels. This was a pilot program. 6 vessels participated, and when footage was reviewed, it revealed discarding of quota fish by 5 of them. A thorough investigation and legal process followed. Each skipper and crew member cooperated fully. A decision was made not to prosecute, and the skippers received a warning. In my view, the decision not to take prosecution action, and in particular the process leading to it, was flawed. The decision, however, was understandable and available in the circumstances, and by that I mean that reasonable people could reach that conclusion. It was a complex matter, approached professionally and in good faith, in my view. The prosecution decision was affected by considerations which were not relevant under the guidelines. In particular, potential embarrassment to MPI or its officials was an irrelevant consideration. Earlier conduct of MFish and MPI created hurdles to the prosecution which shouldn't have been there. The conduct was inappropriate or, at the very least, unhelpful. The decision process was confused, not well documented, and not well communicated. The follow-up actions do not seem to have been thoroughly completed. The limitation period for such a prosecution has passed, and that is appropriate. Prosecution decisions like this, once made, should only rarely be changed. I make some general comments. Any criticisms made in this report need to be seen in context. MPI prosecutes hundreds of cases each year, including, I understand, many fisheries cases. Its processes are generally robust, its people experienced and professional. I found no evidence in my discussions of a systemic problem with the prosecution process at MPI. The issue of discards was again highlighted by Operations Hippocamp and more clearly by Operation Achilles. It's a problem that has been recognised since the beginning of the quota management system. MFish and MPI, in my view, have not grappled effectively with aspects of the problem and either enforced the law or acted to change it. The non-enforcement of the law in a case such as Achilles is unsatisfactory, but primarily due to conduct outside of the Compliance Directorate. Final comment, the issues raised in the Simmons report have long been recognised by MFish, MPI and industry. A coherent rationale to the rules around discards is not obvious to me. The fisheries management system is under review at present, and that provides an opportunity to look at this. In the meantime, it's incumbent, in my view, for commercial fishing to improve their performance and comply with the current law. At least one of the vessels, the subject of Achilles, was able to do so. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike. Well, as Director General of the Ministry for Primary Industries, I place a priority on ensuring my ministry, in its role as the regulator of fisheries in New Zealand, maintains the highest levels of credibility and integrity in the eyes of the public. In May, when details of the 3 operations at the centre of this report were placed in the public arena, I acted quickly to determine the facts and whether correct prosecution decisions were made. I commissioned Michael Heron, QC, the former Solicitor General, to provide an independent review to enable public transparency, particularly into Operation Achilles, where genuine questions were raised around the decision not to prosecute for potentially illegal discarding of quota fish. Today I am releasing the independent Heron report in full, and in doing so I accept its findings. The way in which the decision not to prosecute over the apparent dumping of quota fish was made is regrettable. It is also very disappointing that the process was characterised by confusion and a lack of adequate documentation and communication. However, it's important to note that Mr. Heron found the decision not to prosecute was understandable and available to be made in the circumstances. It was a complex matter, approached professionally and in good faith by all involved. I have noted and accepted the report's findings, and we have already taken action to address some of the underlying issues, and I will ensure that MPI takes further swift action to address outstanding matters identified in this report. I initiated the review to provide transparency into these prosecution decisions, and I believe this has been achieved. In addition to releasing Mr. Heron's report today, we are releasing a range of documents made available to him. We are also releasing a selection of video footage from the Achilles investigation that shows discarding of fish and the capture of 2 hectares dolphins. The substantive matters considered by Mr. Heron's review date back as far as 2003, and to the then Ministry of Fisheries. The formation of MPI has enabled the establishment of a stronger compliance function and overall fisheries management system. I am not interested in affording blame. This was not about individuals, it was about a decision-making process that was regrettably flawed in this instance, and our focus must now be on moving on. We learnt one very clear lesson from Operation Achilles, which has already been applied. That is, when video camera technology is being trialled, we need to be explicit that if potentially illegal activity is recorded, then MPI has the clear ability to prosecute. You may be aware that we currently have video cameras operating in every trawl vessel in the Snapper 1 fleet, and that's on the northeast of the North Island. This is an area from North Cape to Cape Runaway, including the Hauriki Gulf. We have a memorandum of understanding in place that ensures that warranted MPI compliance staff will have access to footage for the administration and enforcement of fisheries law, and makes it clear that all fishers at all times are expected to comply with the law. There are other clear lessons that can be learned from the Heron report, and we will be making appropriate changes to ensure all underlying matters identified by the review are addressed. The matter at the heart of the two of the investigations covered by Mr. Heron's review was the illegal discarding or dumping of fish. The reality is illegal discarding happens. It is an issue that every fishery system around the world is grappling with. Despite this, though, our fish stocks are in good shape, and New Zealand's fisheries management system is recognised as a robust and effective one. There is already much in place to address illegal discarding. Importantly, we have regulations in place and we have reporting requirements. We also have an observer program where over recent years we have materially increased the level of observer coverage. But there are challenges getting it to the level we want. In particular, with the inshore fleet, where many vessels are simply not large enough to take on observers safely. We have worked with industry on initiatives to reduce discarding levels, and of course we have our compliance and enforcement activity. However, our system needs to continually evolve to ensure we manage our precious stocks sustainably for all New Zealanders, to meet changing societal expectations and to make use of new science and technologies. A substantial body of work is already underway in this area. It's a program called The Future of Our Fisheries, and which will modernise and future-proof our systems. This program will provide a genuine step change in fisheries management and compliance, including in relation to illegal discarding. A key part of the future of our fisheries is the acceleration of an integrated electronic monitoring and reporting system, also known as IMARS, across our entire fishing fleet. The IMARS project is planning to install GPS technology and electronic catch reporting on each of the around 1,200 commercial fishing vessels in New Zealand from October next year, 2017, and video cameras are planned to begin to be installed from October 2018. IMARS will mean being out of sight of land, will no longer mean being out of sight of MPI. It will be a powerful deterrent to illegal discards and support future prosecutions. The future of our fisheries program will also include a review of some of the operational elements of the Fisheries Act, including elements that might be driving discarding behaviour. And it is also going to look at the penalty regime for offences under the Fisheries Act to ensure it is fit for purpose. The future of our fisheries program will also include a package of work to enable the development and the use of innovative trawl technologies that have the potential to dramatically reduce wastage. Central to tackling the discards issue is our ability to take successful prosecution action when we find evidence of illegality. We have been conducting a review of compliance functions with the aim of providing national leadership and accountability for fishery compliance. We aim to achieve stronger coordination between compliance and the other parts of MPI that are involved in managing our fisheries. There is a lot of work going on. However, it's imperative industry comes to the party so these initiatives can be effective. The reality is some commercial fishers need to lift their game. There are many responsible operators out there with a genuine interest in the sustainability of our fish stocks. However, there are also some who have less of a commitment to observing the law. Industry has a responsibility to adopt and maintain practices that will ensure the sustainability of our fish stocks for future generations. They also have a responsibility to safeguard New Zealand's international reputation. They're the ones, after all, catching the fish, and they need to obey the law. As the Heron report notes, it's incumbent on commercial fishers to improve their performance and comply with the current law. That message couldn't be clearer. We're implementing a step change in our fisheries management system, and in doing so, giving the industry the tools to get it right. The report provides us all with an incentive to build and maintain excellence to ensure we're operating in the best way possible all of the time. Thank you for your time here this afternoon, and we're happy to take questions.